Hello everyone. Do you know what are the programming language levels that we usually use in our day-to-day life and how these programming languages are converted into computer understandable language? So to know more, watch this video until end. So basically in the day-to-day life, uh, people will discuss mainly about the high-level and low-level programming languages. So what are these high-level and low-level programming languages? So most of the computer programs which was written by human is called as a high level programming language. Means this high level programming language is the language that programmers can easily understand. So this high level programming language will contain normal English words which human can understand easily. So this high level programming language is program friendly language. So every human can easily understand this. Example Java and Python, these are called as high-level programming language. So if you see below syntax, this is a simple hello world program which is used for Java, print the hello world. So here you can understand hello world, it's basic English, and this is a main method and system.out.println. So everything is basic English. So this is what we call as a high-level programming language. So every human can easily understand this. But on the other hand, our computers, our computers cannot understand this high-level language. Means computers cannot understand this English, and computers can only understand the binary language, that is ones and zeros. And these ones and zeros are called as a byte code. Sorry, machine code. So if you see this, machine code will contain like this 1010. So our computer will understand only this ones and zeros. So the language which computer understands is called as a low level language, and it will contain only zeros and ones. Now this low level language is a machine friendly language. Means a machine or computer can easily understand. But for a human to understand this, it is a very tough, because by seeing this 1010 we cannot say what this code is doing. But this in high level, if you see, by reading this we can say like what this method is doing. So that's why this is human friendly and this is computer friendly. And now in Java and in most of the programming languages we write code in a high level, but this high level code cannot be understood by the computer. So now what we need to do, we need to convert this high level programming code into this computer understandable machine code. So this English, basic English should be converted into this ones and zeros so that computer can easily understand. Now, who will do this process? I mean this conversion of this high level into low level, who will do? So for doing this conversion, we have compilers and interpreters. Okay, so to bridge the gap between this high level and low level, we need to convert this high level language into machine code, and this is where the compilers and interpreters will come into play. Now, so this compiler and interpreter are both are the translator programs that will convert the high level code into machine code. So both will convert high level code into machine code, but the way they convert or the purpose of them is different, or they work in a different way. Okay. Now, what is the compiler? So a compiler is a software program that translates high level code into a machine code. Okay. Now we said this compiler will convert high level language code into low level machine code, and this compiler will convert whole source code at once. Means whatever we write, that everything it will convert into this machine code at once. Okay, and the process of converting this high level code into this machine code is called as a compilation. Okay, and when this compiler compiles the source code into machine code, it will generate a executable file, and that executable file can be used in any other machine to execute that code. Okay, this is compiler. For example, C program, if we can take, like C program, we write in a normal high level, and that C program we need to convert into machine code. Now, we can use compiler and convert that C language into machine code. So when we compile the C program, it will generate an executable file or .exe file. That exe file we can use and execute in other environments. Next, what is interpreter? So we said, so interpreter is also a software program that translates source code written in high level programming language into machine code. But here the difference is this interpreter will convert the high level programming into machine code line by line. So as we discussed, compiler, it will compile whole code at once into machine code, but interpreter will convert line by line. So if you see JavaScript is a good example for interpreter language. So when we run a JavaScript in a browser, the JavaScript engine or Chrome or any engine, it will interpret this JavaScript code and it will execute line by line. Okay, so this is the difference. Compiler will execute or compile whole code at once, but interpreter will execute line by line. Okay, this is the main difference. Now we have seen what compiler and interpreter will do. So both will convert high level code into low level code. Now, as we said, compiler will convert high level code into low level code. But does compiler every time compile this high level code into machine code every time? No. So compiler does not compile high level code into machine code every time. But based on the compiler or the programming language that we used, based on that it will either convert into machine code or into a binary or intermediate language. Now see example, this GCC. GCC is a GNU compiler. It is used for compiling the C programming. So when we compile the C program, it converts this high level code into machine code directly. So when we compile this, it will directly generate the exe file which is in the machine code. It means it is in the 1010 format. But when you see Java, when we compile a Java, it won't directly compile into machine code. It will compile into a intermediate code, also called as a bytecode. So based on the compiler or language level, the compiler will either convert into machine code or it will convert into an intermediate code. Okay. Now, what is the difference between this compiler and interpreter? So we have seen what are the compiler and interpreter. Now both will do high level code into low level conversion. But what is the main difference? So if you see, these are the major differences that we usually observe in the compiler versus interpreter. Now, first one is execution method. So as we discussed, compiler will translate whole code into machine code at once, but interpreter will execute line by line. Means it will convert into machine code line by line. So when we compile a code, it will generate a .exe file, but when we use interpreter, it won't execute a .exe file because it will compile line by line. So there is no option or chance to generate a exe file. Now the compiler will compile whole code at once and executes it. So it is a little bit faster. But if it is interpreter, we need to translate line by line. So it will pick one line, it will translate into machine code and it will execute. So for each line, it need to compile and execute, compile and execute. So it will be little slower than the compiler. And when it comes to error handling, the compiler will compiles whole code at once and generates the exe file. So whatever errors we have at the time of compilation itself, we will come to know. But interpreter, it will pick the line, it will compile and it will execute. So while executing, we will come to know what are the errors. So here, while compilation itself will come to know, but here while executing line by line will come to know. And this compiler will generate the exe file that can be stored anywhere and can be reused. So this .exe file we can store it and we can reuse any number of times without recompiling. But here interpreter is as it executes line by line, there is no output. So we can't store any output like exe file here we are storing. So here it is line by line, so no storage. And if you want to reuse, there is no .exe, we can't reuse. So every time you need to interpret. So examples, compiler, C, C++, Java, these languages basically use the compiler, and JavaScript, Python, these languages use the interpreter. And as we discussed, compiler either will directly generate machine code or it will convert into intermediate code based on the compiler or program. But interpreter, it usually uh, convert directly into machine code. So these are the basic differences of compiler and interpreter. So if you like the concept and like the video, and if you have any doubts on this compiler and interpreter, please just comment, we'll discuss.